Ms. Duesling, Councillor Van Passen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I could support the deputation's comment that I could fill the room as well with people who have the same complaint, but I'd like to ask Ms. Duesling, this is part of what the new Green Light Team, is that the official name? That's what their intent is, to try to speed up and improve this process?
Again, to Council, just a point of clarification there. I think Mr. McPherson was speaking more on the building permit process. The Green Light Team, they look at the entire process from community improvement plans and applications through to the planning stage, right through the building and development engineering. So it's more of a comprehensive team that looks at all of those pieces and helps the developer through them all collectively.
Councillor Martin. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Van Passen. I didn't realize you weren't finished.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Ms. Duesling. So we just heard about the duration that it's taking for these reports to get back, and the one reoccurring theme was that Mr. McPherson had to inquire about his projects. What kind of reassurance can he leave here with today that maybe at the very least we can meet these deadlines, or he's not going to have to continuously call to check in on? Is there anything that we can offer him here today to help with that as a start?
Again, to Councillor Martin, again, thanks for that question. Yeah, I think, Dave, in terms of personally, to you again, apologies, and again, my door is always open. I will connect with you shortly, and we can have some more one-on-one conversations about your past experiences. I can say to the development community that's watching, again, we are looking at making some changes. I know the Home Builders Association has contacted me most recently about zoning approvals in line with our 10-day building permit process, and we are working on some interdepartmental organization of that so that we can get the zoning done up front and so that our building permit process can be back to the 10 days that is required. We have had some absences in the building area, and we have some inspectors that are back now, so hopefully things will move along a little bit quicker. So thank you for your patience.
Thanks, Ms. Duesling. Councillor Huffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Ms. Duesling. So just to clarify, just kind of getting all of the information, have you and Mr. McPherson had any one-on-one conversations regarding his concerns?
To Councillor Huffman, not on the particular items that he identified today. Dave has contacted me in the past once. I've been in this position for 5 months, and I've heard from Dave once, just for some general comments, but I look forward to talking about the specific examples that he's mentioned today.
Thank you, Ms. Duesling.
Any further questions of councillors? Okay. Can I have a mover and a seconder that the deputation of David McPherson respecting the timely issuance of building permits be received as information? Councillor Martin, and seconded by Councillor Michelli. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, next on the agenda, Stephanie, do you have the motion for the communications? Okay, in the interest of time, our deputy clerk is just preparing a motion to approve all of the communications items unless somebody wishes to pull one of them to discuss in particular. Councillor Van Passen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to pull 10D on the original one. I don't know if it's been renumbered or not.
Okay, we'll pull 10 Delta.
D. Delta.
Have it. Councillor Martin?
I also would like to pull 10I.
Okay, 10 Delta and India. In that case, could I have a mover and a seconder that communications items A, B, C, E, F, G, H, J, K be received as information? Mover and seconder, Councillor Rabbits and Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Martin.
My apologies, Mayor Chop. I would just like to very quickly reference our deputy clerk on item 11K. That was the new addition, and is there a motion? That was a J and K. Do we need to pull both of those to have a? I believe we do, especially K. At least that was the new.
Yep, through the mayor. So you wanted, I understood you wanted item I to be pulled. Do you want J and K as well?
They're in this one here. K certainly to be pulled. I'm briefed on K.
Okay.
And J, as long as there's approval on that, I believe it doesn't need to be pulled. Unless we want to do it all together.
So, excuse me, sorry, just for clarification through the mayor, if we're grouping them together, so right now we have the A, B, C, E, F, G, H to be received as information. Did you want J and K as well as I to be pulled?
I don't personally have anything to add to J. I'm okay with it being approved. K,
Okay.
I would like to speak to.
Okay, and
Thank
I
you.
as well, correct?
Yes, I as well.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll reread the motion then. I think in that case, it was just because it wasn't printed in the agenda, so it wasn't picked up, but that communication items A, B, C, E, F, G, H, and J be received as information, moved by Councillor Rabbits and seconded by Councillor Huffman, if that's still okay. All those in favor?
Sorry, we were discussing, Councillor Michelle and I are struggling with where to find these K's and J's.
They are in the changes to the agenda. That's why they were open.
We've got J, but we didn't see K.
Through the mayor, K was added as a change to the agenda tonight. And it's in regards to the Buy the Glass Hometown Brew license.
Okay, that is familiar, so. I suppose now is not a time to make a comment.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I do recall that the reason that we decided to go a week ahead with the agendas was so that gave people a longer period of time to read them, to research them, and become informed. I know myself, and having conversation with several other councillors, all of these last-minute items added that are of pretty great importance does not give me my due diligence in terms of researching and understanding the items that are put before us. So I would just like to make note of that. Thank you.
Through the mayor, and I can appreciate certainly where you're coming from, and perhaps the rest of councillors, some of councillors as well. With Harry on staff now, we look forward to speaking with him about the timelines, because there are certainly some growing pains, to be honest. With this one in particular, there is a little bit of an urgent nature, so that's why we have that ability to do the changes to the agenda. But otherwise, if something comes forward to us in council services after the agenda is printed, we recommend that it go on the next agenda that is to be published, because there's just too many changes and it is confusing. But if we feel that is a timely item, then a councillor member can certainly bring it forth and try and do a motion to move it to be heard that night. But again, rest assured, we will be speaking with Harry and the rest of SLT and hopefully come up with a better approach for all of us.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I agree as well. I think, we tried something and maybe, sometimes you try and things don't work out. The hope was to give everybody a little bit more time to read things, but clearly with all the additions to the agenda afterwards, I agree. Yeah. So I think we're all probably in agreement with that, and we'll let Mr. Schlang sort that out with staff on how best to move forward with that piece. But sometimes you try something and it doesn't work, so you pivot and you try something else or so on. So in that case, so if we can get back to the motion that communication items A, B, C, E, F, G, H, and J be received as information, moved by Councillor Rabbits and seconded by Councillor Huffman, if that's still acceptable. All those in favor? And that's carried. First item to be pulled, Councillor Van Passen, is communication item Delta. John Mascaron from the Integrity Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I know this is a new process. We just recently hired an integrity commissioner that started on March 1st, but talking about process, nobody informed us that we had any complaints registered with the commissioner, but they did inform us when we were told that the resolution to that would be delayed. And I think as a matter of policy, either let us know that it's coming so that we don't get blindsided by the media when a report like this comes out, or don't tell us at all until it's resolved, depending on what is the legitimate process. But, we got agendas delivered to our place on Friday. I read through it on a Saturday, but I already had calls Friday night from media going, what's going on, who's to complain about, and all that. So just as a matter of process, and maybe we can figure out what's the best solution to that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Van Passen, for your comments. Anything further? In that case, I have a mover, Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the correspondence from John Mascaron, Integrity Commissioner, regarding notice regarding the Code of Conduct complaints 2019-01 and 2019-02 be received as information. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next item is Councillor Martin, Cassidy Archer Social and Events, if you'd like to speak to that.
I would. Thank you, Mayor Chop. To council and staff, some questions on this one. This is, at Norfolk County, we're regularly hosting events in our community, and there's a process to follow. This individual is coming forward and looking for, let me get it right here, a temporary extension on a liquor license, and this comes forward through to council, and I am aware of many other business owners and events that are being hosted. They come looking for a letter of non-objection, essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, that this is, the county is in support of this event. I wondered if we could have a discussion on where people go to apply for this. I've had personal emails about it. I know it's also come through here today, the clerk's office. What specifically it is, and the best way to go about obtaining this letter so that it's an easy process for people. Clerks. I don't know why I was looking at you, Pam, sorry.
I don't. It's nothing to do.
Sorry, through the mayor to Councillor Martin, I'm fortunate tonight because my colleague Shelley Darlington is in attendance, so if I need to refer to her for some assistance, then again, I'm fortunate for that purpose. With regards to these, the AGCO essentially says that a resolution of the clerk is required, the council is required, and given to the clerk to then give to the person who's who's putting forth the application. So when we had the lame duck period last fall, we had a resolution from the last term of council giving authority to council services and the clerk and myself in his absence to issue these non-objection on behalf of council. But now that we're back to regular council meetings, we're outside of the lame duck period, we have returned to our past practice of looking for the council resolution. One of the reasons why we have the council resolution is because for transparency purposes, but also to show that we have done our due diligence from a corporation's perspective and ensured that building, bylaw, fire, OPP, planning, and various of the other agencies have been informed and they're okay and satisfied with it. And then we bring it back, couple it back as our recommendation to council and then get the resolution. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but we can certainly provide additional information. Again, I'll look to Shelley if she has anything else to add, or I think that's...
Councillor Van Passen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This again is process. I do not understand why Norfolk County is doing a bunch of work that is not our job. The province of Ontario regulates the liquor system that we have, albeit archaic from the 20s, 30s prohibition period. That's the rules we work under. If somebody asks for a permit, all they want is a letter of whether Norfolk County thinks it's a good idea or a bad idea. That's all they're asking for. That's all that we need to give them. Why are we circulating it among all departments to make sure that every department's happy with it? Like 500 people want to show up and at an event in Norfolk County, staff can make the decision whether they think that's good or not good. And if they disagree, we could always go to the bylaw appeals committee for a second chance. But why are we doing a bunch of things we don't need to? The province of Ontario regulates a driver's license. I have to go to the province of Ontario to get a driver's license. Norfolk County regulates the rules of the speed limits. I have to follow the rules of Norfolk County speed limits even though Ontario government gave me the driver's license. Why is this any different? The Ontario government gives me a license that I can have an event that sells liquor. I still have to follow all the other rules that Norfolk County has, but I don't need to go through a month-long process for them to investigate it and decide whether it's a good event for Norfolk County or not. So I think we need to rethink how we do things, quit wasting staff time, resources, financial resources on doing something that's not our job.
Thank you, Councillor Van Passen. Would you like to respond?
Sure. Through the mayor to council, I just want to clarify that the process that we receive and then that we have a staff recommendation to council under communications is not through our licensing process. It's something through the AGCO specifically. And so basically what we're doing, we're not following our, giving a license, and what we're doing is ensuring that due diligence is met, and from a legal perspective as well. So we ensure that fire's been contacted to make sure that the special occasion permit, so where the venue that they're having it is safe and fine to hold the event that way. In terms of further to the special occasion permit, that is deeming, the municipality is deeming that the event itself is municipally significant. And that is only for events that are for profit. So events that are not for profit, it's sort of a quicker process, we sign off. But event that is for profit, then we do require, because staff, just the process isn't to deem the event itself as municipally significant, we're looking to council to provide that resolution.
Councillor, I'm going to let Councillor Van Passen respond, and then.
But when you read the requirements from the province of Ontario, all they're asking for, is it good for the county or not good for the county? That's all they ask for. That's all we need to answer. Your concerns about fire, all of those things, those are in place already. We don't have to investigate that. Whoever's holding that event has to follow all those rules. If we requested an event for this facility right here, I can't bring 500 people into this room. I'm limited to 143 because the rules are right there on the wall. I still have to follow those rules whether the province of Ontario gives me a permit or not. So why are we doing all these things that we don't need to do?
Thank you, Councillor Van Passen. Mr. Slang?
Through you, Mayor, yes. So I saw the request, it's for May 28th, so I'll personally work with the deputy clerk to see, see this process through, look at the timelines and see if there's any improvements we could make. So we hear you loud and clear, we'll see if we can streamline that.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move that this be approved as staff has suggested, pending receipt of all other required approvals, that we have our CAO that's going to work with staff. He knows the deadline and the date to do so, but I did have a conversation with our deputy clerk, and she also said that there was a review process that they were happy to do on what this looks like when it's being circulated to our staff. And I hate to do this to you, Pam, but it's my experience that events are getting caught up as well in the planning department notes. So if Pam could be included in the entire circulation process, I would greatly appreciate that. And if we need that in a motion, that's what I'd like to move.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Stephanie had this as an addition. Would you like that or removed?
I just drafted a motion for
Okay. I have a proposed motion that was prepared by the deputy clerk, that the request for a letter of non-objection temporary extension of a liquor sales license, May 25th, 2019, submitted by Cassidy Archer and Archer Social and Events be approved pending receipt of all other required approvals, and that staff be directed to provide a report to council on the process for obtaining special occasion permits, and streamlining the process by beginning of June?
Yeah.
Beginning of June 2019? Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Michelli and seconded by Councillor Martin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, and the next one, Councillor Martin, was item K that was pulled.
Yes, so we left item J out. Maybe just a note that applies to the same and to our CAO that the event date is April 14th on item K, or J, sorry. Item K is a new addition to bring my colleagues up to speed. They're looking for a by the glass license. Hometown Brew Co. is, and this is something that Adam at Long Point Eco has been having a difficult time with. This is also time sensitive, and I would like to see that this be approved, that the by the glass license be approved and granted to Hometown Brew Co. and by way of motion.
Go ahead.
Through the mayor to Councillor Martin and the rest of council, I actually have the stuff here that Mr. Van Passen requires to move forward. So once we finish this, I get a resolution from council, and then we move forward with the confirming bylaw. I can issue this tomorrow.
Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Councillor Martin. So can I get a clarification with, I guess, that last one in particular? Are individuals leaving these things till the last minute? Is that why there appears to be that it's right down to the wire? I'm just unclear as to why these are all coming forward.
Through the mayor to Councillor Huffman, not to my knowledge, no, that this has been in the queue and they're having a bit of a difficult time with it, and it was timely to issue it as item J was on the agenda, so to have them coupled together. And Adam had been in touch with our deputy clerk and had conversations with her. She was aware of this prior to me bringing it up today.
Councillor Columbus?
Yes, I don't have a problem with the hometown brewery request, but we haven't got anything in writing to study or anything, or some of the details around it. I would hope that our new CAO can address that. These items that are coming on at the last minute, I don't think it's right. I think I heard some other voices around the table here with that concern as well. If we all brought something like that, I think it should be done the proper way.
Councillor Martin?
Thank you. If I may respond to that, not trying to make this difficult for my colleagues, I received an email from a business that's looking for a license and has been. Our deputy clerk was made aware. I consulted her today, and she provided me with direction to add this. We all passed it as a newly added item. I do understand that there's nothing in writing in front of you. However, it is a license. Maybe our deputy clerk can provide more information so our colleagues are comfortable with this.
Okay, I think it's generally just like the other one that's in here. It's just a 3-line statement, basically is almost what the motion is that supports it, so we'll get that out. Okay, do I have a mover that the municipality of Norfolk County supports the application of Hometown Brew Co. for a manufacturer's limited liquor sales license at Long Point Eco Adventures? Mover, Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, that's it for the communications. Now we're on to the approval of the minutes. And I believe I have a motion here moved by Councillor Van Passen and seconded by Councillor Michelli that the open and closed session minutes of April 2nd, 2019 Council and Committee be approved with the exception of resolution number 9, which will be dealt with separately. All those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Geisens, I believe you had pulled item number 9, sir.
There it goes. Thank you. I was the only one. I'm not sure I was the only one, but I did not vote for chickens in the urban area. I don't think that that's where it should be. I think that, my phone has been ringing off the hook saying that we don't want chickens in our town and everything like that. It's all over the place. There are some that still say that they would like to have chickens and everything like that, but there's a lot to know about chickens. I've got some other stuff that I want to talk about. Theoretically, yes, you can have chickens, but there's a lot that comes with a chicken. You need to look after the chicken. There's no doubt about that. You have to look after to make sure that they have water, they have food, and sometimes there is disease in chicken as well. Whether you have 4, 10, or 50, you can have problems with that. So theoretically, the hard part here is, yes, I don't know how many people would have chickens or something like that. Maybe it'll just be something that they'll do for a year or 6 months or whatever they're going to do with it. But I don't think that that's what they want to do. I don't want to say too much or anything like that, but theoretically, getting chickens is great. But I don't believe that they're in urban areas. There can be conflicts between neighbors and people with chickens, and that's going to happen as well, as far as I'm concerned. The best place to raise chickens is in a hamlet or in agricultural land. That's where chickens should be. If you basically what happens here is that at least in a hamlet you have at least an acre. There's a lot of houses out there that are 6 feet apart. They are certainly not ever going to get chickens as far as I'm concerned, and I don't think that would happen. So we are going to different things for different others. I did get a letter, and I don't know if all you got it or not. Garfield Eaton, he was also sent me this, and I hope you read it. Like I said, do we really want to do that? There's a lot to be said. You're going to have to do something with the droppings that they have and all those types of things. You're going to have to make sure in the winter that there's heat in the coop or whatever that you want to talk about. And you have to make sure that there's clean water just about every day. And you can't just put them in a building. You need to be able to let them run somewhere in a pen or something like that. And if you don't want coyotes or raccoons or skunks or raccoons, they will come the coyotes may take the chicken, the raccoons will take the eggs, and perhaps a skunk may come along. Now, I don't know whether that's, if anybody's ever seen a skunk in the urban area, but it can happen. So theoretically, to me, this is not something that we should spend our time on. If I also looked at the, sorry, just give me a minute here, I need to find something. I don't know where I put it now. That was great. Anyway, it's here somewhere. Basically, there are our neighbors. Oxford does not have chickens in their residential. They will. In the agricultural zone, they can have your chickens. Haldeman does exactly the same thing that Oxford. There are a number, and like I said, somehow or other, oh here, I just found it. Waterloo, they used to let chickens have, but no more, but you can keep grandfathering of those that had it. Township of Woolwich, chickens are prohibited only in, chickens are prohibited unless zoned for agriculture. No other livestock is permitted settlement in settlement areas. Township of Wilmot, chickens are prohibited in settlement areas. Pulpitch, push pal. How did I pronounce that? I can't. Sorry, I'm not very good at that. Sorry. Chickens are only permitted in agriculture areas. The town of Erin, in 2012, the town of Erin assessed whether to allow chickens and pigeons in urban areas. Chickens are only permitted in agricultural zones. The city of Hamilton, chickens are restricted to agricultural land. Township of Guelph, Hermosa.
Guelph allows chickens.
Oh, sorry?
Guelph allows chickens.
Yeah. And the other one is Haldeman County, which I talked about. Oxford and the Township of Wellington North designates raising poultry as agriculture and per definition .5 and does not permit in residential zones. So the other thing that I have a problem with, and I don't know if this is the right one, but it's the one that we dealt with last week when we were talking about what we needed to do, and just looking at this for what I've come across, I'm looking at a hen coop, a maximum of 10 square meters usable floor area, and have a maximum building height of 3 meters. That would be about 10 feet high, maybe a little bit more, but 10 square meters, that would be bigger than what we have around this table. That would be a pretty good sized chicken for 4 chickens. If I've got it right, that's basically what it says here. So I don't know if somebody can straighten that out. I don't know, but theoretically, to me, if that's what it is, that's a pretty good sized coop. Thank you. And I'm hoping that we will reconsider, and if you want to get chickens, get them at the grocery or buy a farm and grow your own chickens. Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Last December, we had a meeting. I think I said just about everything that Councillor Geisen just said. I think it's a terrible idea. I agree 100% with him. But the majority of council decided that we were going to allow it. And now the discussion on the minutes is about how we allow it and the rules. So if we're going to get into the discussion of whether or not we want to have chickens, would that first take a motion of reconsideration? Or, otherwise we are dealing with specifically with the rules that are for chickens that I don't want in the first place. But we have to stay on here. We can't get it off on the tangent about whether we want chickens or not, unless there's a reconsideration.
Okay, so if I could, I guess ask for some assistance here from both of you. Okay.
Through the mayor to council, I would recommend that, and procedurally, that the item that has been pulled is specifically resolution number 9 of the April 2nd, 2019 council and committee meeting minutes, so that is the item that needs to be discussed only.
Okay, I would agree with that as well. Councillor Martin, did you want to discuss that item in particular?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I just wanted to provide some clarification to Councillor Geisens. I believe that we came to the resolution of that large size through discussions, especially because you had made the mention of offering them space to move about and potentially run. So I think that is why we came to the decision of such a large space, if that helps at all.
Councillor Columbus.
Well, I think we're wrong. I think we discussed this at council and committee. This is a council and committee recommendation that's coming to council. I think Councillor Geisens is right to be able to speak. Besides, this whole recommendation is absolutely wrong. It says minimum of 4 hens. I had a phone call the other day. This guy says, can I only have 2 hens? I said, no. He says, well, it's right in the report that I can only have a minimum of 4 hens. You know, so then somebody else called up, they said, can I have 40 hens? Because it says minimum. I said,
Well, I think we've seen errors before,
Right.
so clearly
Okay.
the error needs to be corrected.
anyway.
The reading was maximum when we discussed it, and I think that's
And-
even been reported in the newspaper as maximum.
I agree with Councillor Geisens, and I'm glad he pulled it. I'm opposed to permitting chickens in the backyard. Reasons being, why were they prohibited years and years ago? There's a reason why. In 1918, there was an epidemic in the world that killed 50 to 100,000 people. It's on Google. Must be right. There's our health unit. They had indicated to us that they had concerns with this because of disease. We heard from someone who had passed away with the disease from chickens, born chickens, histoplasmosis. We all had the phone call from a gentleman. His wife lost her eyesight on this issue. Also, we have over 30 commercial chicken flocks in Norfolk County. And if they ever get disease, that's worth tens of millions of dollars with the quota, if that ever was from one of our little backyard chicken operations. I've received several complaints over the past years that I've been a counselor. People can't sleep at night, shift workers. Odor. Flies is a big issue that's hardly been ever mentioned in any of the other reports. There's a lot of flies go with chicken if it's not managed properly, if you're coop. People can't leave their windows open that live next to these places. They can't leave their car windows open. They get in, it's full of flies. I had one last October that the bylaw department looked into. And my past experience with chickens is there is rodents, there is coyotes, and mostly flies. And it's just going to create an extra burden for our bylaw officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Columbus. Anything further? Councillor Michele?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to say I certainly understand what Councillor Geisens, Councillor Columbus, Councillor Van Passen are saying. I'm not a big fan of chickens either. I do hope that we will be having another public meeting before all of this gets finalized. And I'm hoping that all the people who have concerns or who support this idea of backyard chickens will come to council and make their presence known. I do have to say that I hope that, because this chicken conversation keeps going on and on and on, and sometimes, I feel like we're all just, clucking constantly. And, but I'm hoping that, the more I hear about this, the more I'm kind of ironically, reminded of the story of Chicken Little. She thought the sky was falling because of some little thing that happened. She got all her friends to get afraid as well. Then she almost got her and her friends eaten by a fox. And then they went to the very, very wise king, or I'm sorry, I guess I'm supposed to say also possibly queen. and got some good advice that, maybe this won't be quite as bad as you think. And, I don't expect, and we could be wrong. I mean, we may have to one day go the route of one of the municipalities that Councillor Geisens mentioned, where we have to go backwards on this. But I do think that a lot of the people here were kind of voted in on a basis of change and new ideas, and maybe we can give it a try. And I'm hoping that it'll be true that not everybody out there is waiting and chomping at the bit to get their 4 hens going so that they can create all of these problems. And I really hope that, that we are right. Thank you.
Councillor Huffman. Thanks, Councillor Michele.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Councillor Michele, it's been a long time since I heard the Chicken Little song. Thank you for the reminder. I'm appreciating this discussion because unfortunately I was not able to be at CIC last week. I would like to, just as a footnote to this, in terms of the staff time, the council time, the public time, the time of the press, that has been spent on the issue of chickens in the backyards. And I would just like to bring to your attention that we earlier had 2 individuals who spoke to this group as community members who don't have enough food, who do not have a place to live, get moldy bread, stale pastries, etc., etc. And I would hope going forward as a council we can focus our resources and our energies on much more productive issues. Thank you.
Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we are back to discussing the actual motion, Councillor Columbus pointed out the one error on bullet point 1, that it's a maximum of 4 hens. But I'd also like to note on bullet point number 3, no slaughtering on site. As soon as you see them, you're allowed to kill them. I think spelling error there, that it should be S-I-T-E.
Okay, any further? Are you prepared to move that motion then, Councillor Van Pass? Or I guess we'll have to take a vote on that correction there. Are you prepared to move that with those?
Madam Mayor, I am prepared to work with staff to make the best bylaw possible, but I'm not prepared to move it.
And just move on then? Here. I'll let you take care of it.
Through the mayor to council, just from a procedure perspective, so this is really just the resolution. It's basically just ratifying the minutes, and so all the resolutions within the minutes from council and committee last week. So giving councillors or committee that sober second thought to be able to review what was brought past. So procedurally, what I would recommend is for council to deal with this resolution specifically from the minutes of April 2nd, 2019. And if that motion is defeated, then it's almost as though that nothing has happened with regards to the staff report, so then you could give direction to staff on then how to proceed. But that's how I would recommend going forward, is to treat that resolution like it's its own separate entity. It's separate from the minutes. If it hadn't have been pulled, for better example, if it hadn't have been pulled, then it would have been coupled, or it would have been grouped in with all of the resolutions of that meeting. So procedurally, I would recommend dealing with Resolution 9 as it is in and corrected in your agendas. And then if that is defeated, then move forward that way.
Councillor Columbus?
Yeah, so if it's passed, which likely will be, and it goes through the system, what's the purpose of having a public meeting if you've already got a motion? Can I ask Ms. Dusling her comments on this? Because it's got to go back to a public meeting, is my understanding. And here, do we have the cart before the horse? Ms. Dusling.
If I could just say one thing with that. So my understanding with going to a public meeting, I know that it hadn't been done this way in the past. However, the public meeting, when you're making a proposed zoning bylaw, is meant to substantially be the bylaw that's going to be presented. When I read the legislation just the other day. So the idea behind approaching it from this manner was so that council was able to get some input more so than what we might have otherwise gotten. Otherwise, it was staff just bringing a bylaw forward to the meeting, which we may or may not have wanted as it was. So this way, where we were able to look at some of the other municipalities, the idea was try to say, allow us to pick from the municipalities that we thought most represented Norfolk. And then when we presented it at a public meeting, it was essentially the bylaw that was going to be approved. However, if residents continued, if there are certain issues and items that you want changed at a public meeting, just like any other public meeting, of course, that can then be changed at the time. But this substantially would be the bylaw coming forward pending public consultation.
Through you to Mayor Chop and Council, that is correct. Planning staff are now acting on council resolution pending tonight, and we will move forward to the public process with that draft bylaw. And we're planning to be back at public meeting in June.
Thank you. The idea from the legislature when you have a public meeting is that, again, essentially you are presenting the bylaw as you want it to be. And because this was such a contentious issue, it gave council an opportunity to be able to present the bylaw as we anticipated the final result to be. But of course, it is always subject to change. So with that, with the changes as discussed, as articulated clearly at all previous meetings, that it's a maximum of 4 hens and no slaughtering on site, the property. Councillor Hoffman?
Sorry, just going over that and in terms of that. And I'm also wanted to make note where it says 4 months old at adoption.
So you weren't here with that piece. There was a municipality in Nelson had recently passed that. It was, you're certainly welcome to comment on it now if you like. The idea was because little chicks can get chirpy, that could be sort of annoying to some people, and that older chickens don't kind of make the same noises.
Okay. Do I still have to stand, I guess? Okay. But for the most part, if you're getting them at that very young age, the chicks, they're not going to be in the coops at that point in time. These chicks would be kept indoors. People wouldn't have them out in the coops until a certain age.
Well, I just think we're maybe getting into a whole different ball game of
Well, I'm
chickens
just
in the
saying from
house
past
now.
experience, and that's the way that it works. And you can ask Minor Brothers when they sell all their chicks in the spring to people. So, anyways, that was confusing to me.
Councillor Geisens.
Understand, yes, you can get chicks, but it's going to take you a while to get them. And you will have to, on cold nights and everything, have a light or to keep them warm and everything. But what most people take are pullets that are half grown and everything like that. And very shortly will start laying eggs, but they'll be much smaller than they first start and then later on. But the hens won't lay eggs 365 days a year either. So you realize that's not going to do that way. But the best thing that you can get if you want to get, I shouldn't say this, but if you need eggs, you get pullets, and that's about the size that you can.
Okay, is there a mover with the corrections as presented? Councillor Martin, and a seconder? With the max, I think there's some confusion. So we have the minutes that we're trying to ratify from that item. The corrections are maximum 4 hens, the no slaughtering on site, and that would be a bylaw that is prepared and brought to the public meeting for further consultation. Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry, I thought this was going to be an item for another time, but I just have one more correction to make to that list.
Sure.
The very last bullet indicates that written consent form the owner, and I wasn't sure if that was a misspelling of inform or if it's from, but I would like it corrected.
You're right.
From?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so a mover to ratify the minutes then. Counselor Martin, is that? Okay, and a seconder to ratify the minutes, Counselor Rabbits. Any further discussion? Can we get a recorded vote?
Okay, so through the mayor, the motion would be as follows. That resolution number 9 of the council and committee minutes, resolution number 9 of council and committee be approved as presented. That staff be directed to prepare a bylaw with the following provisions. And to start is a maximum of 4 hens, minimum 4 months old at adoption, no roosters per property. Feed to be kept secured from rodents outside hen enclosure. No slaughtering on site, and the correct spelling will be added to this. No sale of eggs, manure, or other products. 3-meter setback from side and rear property line and abutting dwellings. Minimum coop and run space for hens up to 10 square meters and 3 meters tall. Registration with the Ontario Chicken Marketing Board small flock policy. Manure to be disposed of properly. Coops are to be enclosed on all 6 sides if not buried, and the owner of the backyard hens must reside on the premises where the backyard hens are kept. Tenants must obtain written consent from the owner to keep backyard hens on the owner's property. And from a recorded vote, I will start with Councillor Geisens. Councillor Rabbits.
Yes.
Councillor Columbus.
No.
Councillor Martin.
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen. Councillor Huffman. Councillor Michelli.
Yes.
Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Mayor Chop.
Yes.
The motion passes.
One comment I just want to add, Councillor Geisens, I want to sit with you one day on social media and show you all the people that did actually comment online. There were so many people, it was overwhelming in favor of it. And I know you're probably not a big Facebooker, so maybe one day I can show you that.
Sorry, there's one other item, and that is the property motion. I think that Councillor Huffman may have something to appoint herself. I gave you. Sorry, do you mind if I
Yeah,
just-
I didn't.
I'll rewrite it, but I think Councillor.
Oh, here it is, here it is. Okay, next motion before me is, we need to appoint somebody to the Poverty Action Partnership Committee. And last week, Councillor Hoffman, we held off, hoping that I think everybody was thinking you might be the right person for the job if you were interested in that committee. If not, if there's anybody else that might be interested, that's to work with Carrie Sinkowski.
In regards to the poverty action?
Correct.
Yes. Yes, I will.
Okay, so if I could have a mover and a seconder that Councillor Huffman be appointed to the Poverty Action Partnership Committee for a term for the remainder of our council term? Is that fair? Okay. Moved by Councillor Rabbits and seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you, Councillor Huffman.
Sorry, but there's just these 2 items here that we're supposed to read out.
It's also come to my attention that staff would like a correction to the earlier motion that was moved by Councillor Van Passen and Councillor Rabbits, that staff report FS 19-08 2019 user fees update be received as information, and that council approve the planning fees as presented in the staff report to be effective June 1st, 2019. So if we could take a vote on that again. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And Mr. Sonnenberg wishes for the press if we could read the entire motion. Perhaps, Stephanie, I'll leave that to you in regards of the user fees for the arenas, the report that we've requested.
through the mayor. The motion is as follows. Whereas the use of municipal facilities are an integral part of the fabric of amalgamated communities and electoral wards, and whereas citizens of Norfolk County have expressed discontent with the user fees associated with ICE rental rates, and whereas the 6 arenas owned by Norfolk County are less than 60% utilized, and the costs and revenues are significant and an integral part to the annual budget, and whereas increasing recreation participation in Norfolk County will have a positive impact on residents' mental, physical, and psychological health, which will benefit both individuals and the community as a whole. And whereas on December 18th, 2018, Resolution 32 was passed and states that staff be directed to report back with more details on fees. And whereas staff have provided a report to Council on March 19th, 2019, which was substantially debated and deferred once again so Council may have a more in-depth view of arena operating costs and revenues. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to produce a comprehensive report by the beginning of July 2019 that identifies from 2016 to current as follows, but not limited to: the name and location of each facility, major significant user groups and utilization levels per group per facility, and prime time and non-prime time usage, detailed revenue reporting that shows user fees, advertising revenue, room rental revenue, concession revenue, and revenue created by the Waterford Tricentenarina Solar PV Fit project per facility, 10-year capital plan expenditures and financing method required per facility, and detailed cost reporting to show current staffing levels, salaries and benefits, utilities, contracted services, materials and supplies, and insurance per facility, administration overhead cost sharing and debt repayment, trailing 3-year capital expenditures and opportunities for cost savings.
Thank you. Do we need to take a vote on that? I was just reading it for the record. Thank you. Okay, so at this point, I guess we're going to move into closed session.
We still have the other committee.
This. We could take a 5-minute break just to organize some of the motions here.
I'll take your file.
On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why We know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of North.
All right, maybe we can get going again here. I think we've got quorum in the room. I just need a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the Health and Social Services Advisory Committee meeting of January 17th, 2019 be received as information. Mover, Councilor Rabbit, seconded by Councilor Columbus. All those in favor? And that is carried. Next, that the minutes of the Recreational Facilities Advisory Board meeting of February 26, 2019 be received as information. Mover and a seconder. Councilor Michelli, Councilor Taylor. All those in favor? And that is carried. That the minutes of the Recreational Facility Advisory Board meeting of March 18th be received as information. Mover and a seconder. Councilor Rabbits, seconded by Councilor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. That the minutes of the Recreational Facility Advisory Board meeting of March 25th be received as information. Mover and a seconder. Councilor Huffman, Councilor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried. That the minutes of the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board minutes of March 18th, 2019 be received as information. Councilor Huffman, or Councilor Martin?
My apologies, Mayor Chop. I wanted to speak to this. Should I have pulled it? Am I still able?
No, I think we could speak to it right now.
Okay, just a couple quick questions for tourism staff. To Ms. Dusling, we had emailed a little bit and your staff did provide me with quite a bit of information. I guess I wanted to just take this opportunity to speak publicly about the minutes under item number 7, page 205 on the TDAB minutes. It speaks about the budget implications that council made cuts through to the department, and then it lists a variety of cuts and what they manifested into. I guess I was wondering if Ms. Dusling could take a minute and just share with us maybe why these cuts materialized into the things they did. And my motivation behind that is I heard from some community members, board members, that this information was not necessarily well received. And I think it's important to note that although council does have to take responsibility for making cuts, that's the job that we are here to do in one way, shape, or form. And I want it to be well known that these cuts materialized into these line items because of staff's direction to make them in those line items. So I wondered if we could get some information to share with the public as to why these were the items that were cut.
Through the mayor to Councillor Martin, I'll start by saying that These cuts were, I think, both a combination of senior leadership team cuts before they came to council for budget, as well as a combination from council's deliberations at budget session. Primarily, we focused on the print media advertising that way, feeling that at council's direction as well that we could do more items within our social realm. And also with our new communications team, which would give us some new opportunities that we haven't had before. So we're happy to look into that newly this 2019 year. There were some, I know, Councillor Martin, you received some other information that went into more details other than the advertising. And I did want to make a correction. I know the student startup program, there's been some questions about that in the public and also from yourself, Councillor Martin. We are moving forward with the SUP program this year. We're intending to do it a little bit different than we had in the past. Usually in the past we've gone out and solicited businesses who have supported the program. This year we're looking at hopefully supporting that internally somehow. We're still working out the details with our finance area. And we will be providing grants. They will not be advertised as well as they were in the schools last year, but we will again be doing a social media campaign of the program and hopefully get some buy-in with our students in Norfolk County that way. And then we will be summarizing the campaign the same way we have in the past, where the students write a report and then they're provided the second part of their grant. So that's our intention for the SUP program. And I'm happy to answer any other specific questions you have.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Ms. Dusling. I know the student startup program has been successful thus far, and I was under the impression, that was another point I wanted to clarify, that there is a bit of an opening in a staff position per se in your department, and that is directly related to the student startup. Although I'm sure cuts are relevant, it's not directly related to cuts as well. There was some staffing issues, but it was my understanding that this program was funded by business owners previously. So are you saying now that this is something coming off of the council budget or the levy to fund this program?
Through to Councillor Martin, through Councillor Mayor, through Mayor Chop to Councillor Martin, we're looking at opportunities with finance right now. So I can't confirm that answer today, but we're looking at opportunities with finance.
And will that be shared with council before a decision is made?
I'll look to my friend, Mr. Johnson, to help me with that.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Martin. So when we were investigating the budget line items related to this program, there was one of my staff found some areas related to, before I comment further, I'd like to confirm the information, but it's something that we were investigating. And by all means, once we do investigate where the budget line item is and the descriptions, we can perhaps either do an email or an information memo back to council. I'd also like to mention that these items that are in these minutes were part of the February 20th budget deliberations, and you can remember that long list of items that SLT brought back to council. All of these items were within that list, just to make sure that council and the public know that we were transparent with those cuts with council.
Councillor Martin, anything further there?
Thank you, James. I guess the point I was driving home was that the department did have some say in what reductions were happening, and that there are changes coming out of the department that we're going in a new direction. And the reason, my intention behind bringing this up was that people were maybe concerned about the guide or concerned, but there are other things happening. The student startup program, that was a concern of mine. I am interested maybe to hear more of the dollar value that would come from council for that startup program, if that time would come. But anyways, this was feedback from some board members. We've got some new members as well, and I just wanted to take an opportunity to allow you to speak to some of that. Thanks.
Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I took a little flack over some of these too, and I think one of them was a legitimate concern, like on example, the guides in the map, that we have businesses and farms that pay a fee to be included in that, and now they're looking at paying the fee and not having the same service. And there is a balance there somewhere, and might be something to revisit on whether you adjust the fees or work out a better maybe not decrease it by so much and try to get the best bang for the buck, but they're paying for a service and they're not getting what they think they're paying for.
Thank you, Councillor Van Passen. I too have had a lot of feedback from the public on these cuts, in particular things to marketing and to the magazines, and those are the things that we need to be focusing on. And yet there's a number of areas, I think, within that department that even you hear rumblings through the public of things that maybe could have been considered as opposed to directly targeting the magazines and so on. To be blunt, I think that there's time spent staff out, spending nights at various locations and so on within Norfolk County, and I think that those are probably the areas that we should be looking at and not cutting our marketing budget, because that's what's going to drive tourism to Norfolk County. So I don't know, in terms of the student startup program as well, I don't remember that ever sort of forming a part of a discussion. If we have businesses that are willing to support that program, and they have in the past, why would we be putting this on the levy at this point after a budget's already been passed?
So through you, Councillor Mayor, or Mayor Chop, my apologies this evening. Good questions. Usually how that program works, again, is we have a staff member who has a strong skill set in working with our local businesses that work with them to solicit that money. That program is usually started well in advance of April. We have a temporary person in that position that doesn't have the same skill set. So we're looking for creative opportunities to keep that SUP program moving. So we're looking at allocating funds within our current budget for tourism and economic development and DCS to keep that program running this year. We are in a little bit of an awkward situation this year, but we know the importance of that program for our community and want to see that it follows through.
If it involves raising funds from businesses to be able, I can't remember, what was the dollar figure that was attached to the student program? Do you remember that they raised?
I don't
roughly
remember right offhand.
It wasn't humongous. We're talking about small donations. I remember handing one out to one of the kids at the symposium. So I think that there is an opportunity, even the people that we have on our tourism board that probably would be willing to pick up the phone and call some businesses and raise some money as donations, that would be more than willing to continue to support a program like this. So I don't think that, with all due respect, that it requires a huge qualification to be able to go out to kind of solicit some support from businesses. And I think that there's members on the Tourism Advisory Board that would certainly be willing to approach businesses that they knew that might be a better approach than directly putting it on the levy. Any further questions? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board minutes of March 18th, 2019 be received as information? Councillor Martin, Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next is that the minutes of the Haldeman Norfolk Housing Corporation minutes of January 16th, 2019 be received as information. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Rabbits, Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. That the minutes of the Norfolk Heritage Committee minutes of January 28, 2019 be received as information. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Columbus, and seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, now we're into the bylaws. So, motion that bylaws 2019-09, bylaws 2019-15, bylaw 2019-16, bylaw 2019-29, bylaw 2-OP-2019, bylaw 18 Zulu 2019 be approved, signed by the mayor and county clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. A mover and a seconder. Counselor Geisens, Counselor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that's carried. Counselor Van Passen.
Have we made that amendment to bylaw 21929?
That was the one earlier. The, Okay. So next up is a motion, that's been moved by Councillor Huffman, that resolution number 35 of the council budget deliberation meetings of January 23rd, 24th, and February 20th, 2019 be reconsidered. Is there a reason this is all together?
Yeah, just to see the neighbor there.
Okay.
Yeah, you can usually close that out.
So as a result of this being a reconsideration, I will let Councillor Huffman speak to this, and then it will require a 2/3 majority to move ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. So just to, I guess, get the guidelines here. So I am basically speaking as to why I would like this motion revisited. I'm bringing this motion forward to revisit this issue, right? So I can kind of explain why I feel, okay, all right. Just want to make sure I fall within the parameters. Well, actually, I guess our last discussion that we just had moments ago lends itself very well to this discussion, is that lots of things happen during budget deliberations that happen quickly, they happen swiftly, and I think sometimes we're not really aware of what some of the ramifications are. And especially noting that that was our first budget deliberations, and we knew that we had to get some cuts in there. I feel after, I did not support the cuts to the training and development from the beginning, and probably due to that fact, I had several staff members and community individuals reach out to me to express their concerns. So I did my due diligence. I got the information from those individuals, and then I went directly to their direct supervisor to get some direct information. So I conducted a meeting on March 8th with Heidi Van Dyke, the director, and got the following information. So there were 3 staff that were, I'm going to speak to just this specific issue, and then we can go forward after. And the reason I'm bringing it forward. There were 3 staff in Health and Social Services who were affected greatly by the cancellation in regards to assistance for tuition. The 3 employees that I was made aware of are long-serving employees of the county. Together, the 3 employees have over 60 years of working with Norfolk County. The I can get into I'll just stick with this. I'm going to go. Essentially, the breakdown of the impact to our budget in regards to these 3 particular individuals was employee 1, $1,700, employee 2, $1,500, employee 3, $1,200. Total budget, $4,400. Plus, there is a 50% Ministry of Community and Social Services reduction of $2,200. So we're now dealing with half of that amount. Then there's another reduction further of $800 from the Haldeman contribution to this training and development piece. We are now left, the levy impact for these 3 staff who have over 60 years experience working with our county, the impact to the levy is $1,320. To me, that is a small price to pay for a commitment to long-term staff. These staff are not planning to get degrees and often go running to someplace else. And I would like to say that often I'll hear from people, you know, if you train your staff, they'll leave and they'll move on. And I guess my question in regards to this issue on a whole is that if we don't invest in our staff, what are the consequences when we don't allow them to pursue training? And I'm also curious as to how that works in terms of our professional membership fees that some of our staff have to pay. So I would just like to respectfully ask my colleagues to have a longer and further discussion regarding this budget cut item. Thank you.
Councillor Huffman just said that she did not support this resolution when it was brought forward. I do believe our procedural bylaw says that somebody makes a request for reconsideration has to be from the winning side. So is this a valid or is it different because of the budget process with the resolutions?
That is correct. Okay, moving on then. We are, do you want to go into closed session at this point
I
then?
think you've got a couple more motions. You've got your, this 40.
Okay. All right, so next I have a motion moved by Councillor Huffman and seconded by Councillor Michelli, whereas Jason Gordy of Simcoe has represented Norfolk County in the 2019 Special Olympic World Games in Abu Dhabi, and whereas Gordy won gold in the 10-pin bowling competition, and whereas Gordy's victory follows a triple gold medal performance at the 2018 Canadian Bowling Championship in Prince Edward Island. Therefore, be it resolved that County Council declare the date of April 13th, 2019 as the Jason Gordy Day in Norfolk County. All those in favor? And that's carried.
There's just, that one right there.
Okay, the next motion before us is moved by Councillor Huffman, that Councillor Huffman be appointed to serve upon the Council Program Review Committee. The motion requires a seconder. Councillor Rabbits, any discussion on the motion? Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This committee did meet yesterday and basically came to the conclusion very quickly that since we now have an interim CEO in place, that maybe this committee should step back and allow the new CAO to look at the entire situation a little bit and maybe reconvene the committee after the summer break or in the fall. So I would suggest that this motion be premature, so I move that we just defer it till after the summer break.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for the deferral? Councillor Martin, and all those in favor? Great, that motion's carried. Okay, and now we're going back. I'm sorry for the confusion here. I just didn't know when we were going back to the beginning of the agenda. So I just need a mover and a seconder that council move into closed session at, or Councillor Columbus.
I had some confusion about page 235, Councillor Huffman's request, and I didn't realize that we finished with it. And I did support that motion on February 20th, whatever it was, I recall, because I thought it was important to have training for our staff. So where are we with this right now? Is everybody else confused?
Yes, Councillor Columbus, we are
It was
confused.
filed in the agenda, was it not, as Councillor Huffman moving the motion? So that was the point of order. So she had moved it, and she was not able to move the motion, and she was the one that put the notice of motion forward. Right? It was a notice of motion brought by Councillor Huffman. It came to this council meeting as a motion, and it was not properly brought forward as that was the point of order. And so I don't believe that it's within our rules to be able to then go and ask that somebody else move it.
Okay, what Councillor Van Passen shared with us was, can you clarify that for me, please? Why we were out of order?
I just questioned that Councillor Huffman stated she was opposed to that motion when it was made. So I assumed that she was on the losing side of that because it did pass.
And I was in support of that motion, so can I call it that we look at it again? I think there's confusion around the Council Chambers here.
Yeah. Just had a meeting yesterday. Just hired a new boss yesterday.
They can't bring it back if they.
Well,
I thought you agreed with that one. I just,
Is that what I said?
yeah.
Yeah, I said that, right?
I'll let you take it away.
Only 1,400 bucks.
Councilor Michelle, you're good.
Counselor, can we let the deputy clerk just address this?
Through the mayor, so the procedural bylaw states 19.4, so before accepting a notice of motion to reconsider, the mayor may ask the member to confirm that he or she voted with the majority on the issue in question. So do you recall, Councillor Huffman, did you vote with the majority?
So in regards to speaking to vote with the majority, you're talking about during our budget deliberations when the issue came forward to make the cuts to the training.
That's correct.
I would assume I did not vote in favor of that.
Okay. So you did not vote with the majority? So
I don't-
you did not vote in favor of reducing the cuts?
I believe so, yes. And so, again, this would be where I would, from the clerk's department, where as council member, that this is the direction that I received
Yeah.
for bringing this forward, so.
Okay, with the mayor's and council's permission, would this be okay if you left it with me and I look into it and we could perhaps bring it back on the 23rd?
I'm fine personally if Counselor Columbus wants to move it on Counselor Huffman's behalf.
You mean right at this time? Deal with it right now?
Might as well.
Yes, I will move that.
Yeah, if you voted
Thank you.
for it.
Counselor Shelley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just for clarity, so I understand now that Councillor Columbus, you voted for this, and now you're going to make this motion. Is that correct?
Right.
You're
Correct.
moving this? Okay.
I'm
Because
moving.
I misunderstood. I thought you said you voted against it originally, and I was concerned that we had two people now voting the wrong way. So thank you very much. I think now we are clear?
Okay, so this will require a 2/3 majority vote to open this back up. So a seconder for Counselor Columbus in this case then. Counselor Michelle? Okay, and can I ask for a recorded vote on this one as well, Stephanie?
This is just to open the reconsideration.
To open the reconsideration on the matter. And further discussion at this point.
Okay, through the mayor, so the recorded vote would be to reopen the Resolution 35 of the budget deliberation meeting. So just to see if this item can be reconsidered, we'll start with Councillor Geisens. Councillor Ravitz?
No.
Councillor Columbus?
Yes.
Councillor Martin?
No.
Councillor Van Passen? Councillor Huffman?
That would be yes.
Councillor Michelle?
Yes.
Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Mayor Chop?
No.
It's defeated. There's only 5 that voted for it, so.
Okay, next we're moving back into closed session. I have a motion that council move into closed session at 19:22 PM